Yo, what's going on, gadget grabbers? So in today's video, we're going to be replacing the front LCD panel on the iPhone 11. Let's jump right into it. All right, so to get started, I'm going to grab my pentalobe screwdriver. And here it is. So I'm going to go ahead and start removing the bottom two pentalobe screws. Now that I got the screws removed, I'm going to use my heat gun here to slowly heat the surface. I want to keep moving because I want to make sure that I'm distributing the heat. But the focus for this is primarily the adhesive that is going around the perimeter. So I'm checking to see how hot it is. If it's too hot to touch, it's too hot, but it should be definitely you should be able to embrace the heat in a slight way. So this suction cup was not actually working too well because of the cracks in between the screen. So if your phone was completely damaged like the one I was repairing, feel free to just jump right in there if the phone is damaged and it's beyond, repair. Um, but if you have a phone that is cracked and the LCD is still working perfectly, then you definitely want to take your time so that you'll be able to salvage that part. So as I'm entering, I'm trying to acquire some leverage from the bottom area near the charging port. And once I found a little foothold, I decided to pry slightly upwards to start releasing the clips on the perimeter of the iPhone. And here I'm actually looking for my guitar pick that I was able to slide underneath the metal to to um, to sit on the inside of the phone for my placeholder. All right, so I'm actually working my way around with the second guitar pick, utilizing it as a placeholder, and that is helping me get the adhesive from the bottom to separate, and then also to pop the screen out of the sockets. You can feel those clicks as they happen, and here I am trying to acquire more leverage on the sides. And once that side opened up, I started to move and utilize the plastic in that direction. As you can see, I'm sliding it downward, and I can feel the pops of the iPhone 11 screen separating from the housing. And then I'm going to the opposite side to perform the same task, slightly using a wrist twist to apply the upward leverage, the upward pressure towards the screen, towards the ceiling, and that helps get the screen to pop out of socket. And then at this point here, I'm actually trying to separate the LCD from the top area of the phone, which also has a lock, or which also has sockets that need to be released. Then when I'm able to actually feel that last socket separate, the phone opens up just like a book from left to right. All right, so now that I have the phone open, I'm actually going to utilize my suction cup over here to hold the phone up like a kickstand so that I'm not stressing out the cables. Now I'm going to grab my Y000 screwdriver. I'm going to go ahead and remove the 5 Y000 screws that are holding down the LCD and also the front sensors. So after I get these screws out here, I'll be moving this shield out of the way. Now, I would recommend that if your phone is not absolutely dead uh, prior to starting this repair, you should actually aim to remove the battery connector prior to disconnecting the screen and other cables. Simply because there have been situations where some people have shorted out their screens based on disconnecting the screen without turning or disconnecting the battery first. So here I am actually disconnecting the LCD cables. So here we go as we disconnect the front sensor and ear speaker connection. I'm actually just clearing up some of this adhesive that's sticking, cutting that up. And now we have the screen separate from the logic board. But before I actually get to the screen, there's some more we have to do with that. I actually want to go ahead and disconnect the battery just to make sure as I'm reassembling the phone that the battery will be disconnected. So I'm using my Y000 to remove the 3 screws shaped in an L that is holding down the battery connection and other connections. So you can see that now we have it separate. We can move the shield out of the way, and you can see me trace the pathway of the battery to the connection, and we disconnect it simply. Now we can set aside the logic board and we can get back to the LCD display panel. So here we have 3 Phillips screws that need to be removed and 1 tiny Y000 in the top left corner there holding down the front sensor. I go right ahead at the Phillips on the far left, and as you can see I'm laying the screws out in a form that allows me to remember where they are located basically in correlation to themselves. So this is just an organization pattern I like to use when I'm opening anything. It helps me remember where things go. Now, I'm going to go ahead and use my Y000 to get this little guy out of the corner, and we will proceed in removing the front sensor. So, as we get up close into this iPhone, we want to be aware that there is a connector that is holding down the infrared component. So we want to actually pull that up gently, but while I was doing that, it actually got sucked in by the ear speaker magnet. So there it is. But you just want to make sure you keep this because this is going to hold the sensor down. Well, I like to do my repairs in a flawless way. No screw left behind. So here I'm going to use these blunt tweezers to slide underneath our front sensor assembly. So on the far right, I'm actually utilizing my wrist to twist upwards on the sensor, knowing that it's adhesed to the front. I don't want to use too much pressure, so I want it to slide out. I don't want to pull it out, because if I use too much force, I may rip the cable, and that's going to be something to replace. So I'm actually going on both sides where the gold connector is on the left and also on the right, just to start getting a little bit of separation. Now, this front sensor is a little bit difficult to get out by itself, so I'm going to use the heat gun just to soften things up, and that'll be the last aspect of the front assembly, the front sensor assembly that needs to be removed. So I'm lightly heating the screen and giving some time off, not spending too much time at one spot. Right now I'm trying to see which side I can find leverage on, where I can start seeing the separation. This sensor slides in kind of like a floppy disk in a CD slot. It's just straight inside with a small line of adhesive on the opposite end. So as you're pulling it up, you're kind of going against the adhesive. So that's why I use the heat gun, just to soften it up just a little bit. And I want to just try my best to get one side lifted, so then I can focus on separating it from the center. So I'll go ahead and use my hand here, because I started to see that there was an opportunity, but I pushed it down with my finger. So here again, I'm starting from the far right side, and I'm using leverage to lift from that side. And this was really tricky, but it worked perfectly actually. All right, and here I am lifting it up. We got a successful separation. All right, you guys can see the front sensor assembly, that small piece at the top there. A little horizontal piece is a little stubborn. So now that we have everything removed from the previous screen, our new assembly, all we need to do now is reconnect the front sensor assembly, and when we actually put back the screws, we will be able to proceed in closing this phone. So I'm over here removing the stickers, getting these out of here, because this screen is really clean. All right, so now I'm actually going to start the same way I ended, by first sliding in that horizontal bar. And with that being the first thing that slides into place, it actually is a great foothold for everything else to slide directly in their places. So as soon as I got that to be seated securely, I was interested to feel and make sure I could feel the connections of things sitting in their spaces. And you can feel exactly when things are exactly where they need to be, because there's a small clip or small dip that the parts go when they're in the right spot. So after considering that being done excellently, I'm now reinstalling the connector that holds down the horizontal infrared sensor. Now that it's in there properly, I'm holding it down just to give it some pressure as I prepare to reinstall the Y000 screw in the top left corner. Now that that's secure, I don't need to hold it down anymore, and I can proceed to reinstalling the 3 Phillips screws from left to right. Now I'm prepared to start to reconnect this new screen assembly to the logic board. So the first thing I'm going to connect here is the front assembly, the sensors in the front. That is the cable I'm aligning right now. So there's an alley that you must align the cable that it passes through so that you can be right on cue for where the cable touches the connector. Now that I have that into place, I'm going to go ahead and connect the digitizer and LCD cables. And now that I'm actually giving you guys the step-by-step, I think it would have been better to reconnect the battery, but at the same time, it's just a little bit tricky doing it afterwards because of the cable being in the way of the battery's screws. So I just wanted to double check and make sure that this cable was gonna, that this LCD was gonna show some signs of usage. So I connected it to the USB briefly, and that let me know that the cables are all connected correctly. The battery is also working correctly because it's detecting charge entering into the device. So here I'm going to go ahead and reconnect the shield for the battery connector. So this one is what I was telling you guys about. It's a little tricky when you have that cable already connected. We're gonna have to find the best way to do this as far as the steps is concerned. But I just slide it underneath the cables, and you can see here as it fits perfectly. I went ahead just to disconnect the cable because it's a little bit difficult to do while it's in the way. So just disconnect it for a second, and I'm able to have enough space. Now I will start screwing back the battery shield with the 3 Y000 screws. All right, now that we have that screwed in, the next is to reconnect the LCD cable. and to reapply the shield for these cables. After I get it in alignment, I'm going to go ahead and use my Y000 to reinstall these 5 screws. Alright, so now with everything in place, no screw left behind, let's go ahead and close this bad boy. So to close, I'm going to actually align the top, and I'll find the socket in which the screen sits into the frame. And as soon as I feel that pop, then I'll proceed to the sides, the right and the left side, and I will navigate my way downward with applying pressure as I feel the phone snap back into the body. Then lastly, I'll grab my pentalobe screwdriver and I'll start to reinsert the 2 security screws at the bottom. So that is a step-by-step of how you replace the LCD on the iPhone 11. I hope you're able to see some of the things that I slowed down on so that you can make this a faster process for yourself. And if you were unaware of how it looks and how to navigate on the internal, hopefully this gives you all the step-by-step that you need to get your phone fixed. So with that being said, make sure to check the video description for all the cool links and all the other opportunities that we have here with Go Grab Gadgets. So with that being said, I really appreciate you for watching this video. I hope it nourished you. I hope it gave you insight. And until the next one, peace. Like that.